The history of humanity brings us stories of wars that have driven the wheel of history and brought about significant social and political changes. During these conflicts, entire empires rose and fell, with large armies facing each other on the battlefields. However, not all conflicts led to actual battles. History records mysterious cases where armies suddenly disappeared without a trace. It is difficult to imagine how thousands of soldiers could simply vanish. Nevertheless, it has happened several times, and the question of how and why remains. The fate of these armies is still the subject of speculation in many cases, and it is unclear where exactly they disappeared to. There are theories that they were defeated by the enemy so thoroughly that no records were left, or whether supernatural forces intervened. Some reports even speak of mysterious portals through which soldiers entered and never returned. In today's video, we will introduce you to several of the most famous cases of these mysterious armies, whose fate remains almost unknown. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and without further delay, let's get started. In the 1st century BC, ancient Rome was the most powerful state entity in the Mediterranean, but its traditional republican system was undergoing a serious crisis. Civil wars and unrest shook this empire, and a series of reforms aimed at calming the situation often failed. In 60 BC, 3 prominent men, Caesar, Pompey, and Crassus, entered into a cooperation agreement, effectively taking control of the entire state. The first triumvirate was formed, a political alliance in which members advocated their own ideas about the future direction of Rome. Marcus Licinius Crassus was considered the wealthiest Roman of his time. His fortune was estimated at a staggering 200 million sesterces, making him one of the richest individuals in ancient Rome. However, what he lacked was military glory. Despite his martial role in suppressing the uprising led by Spartacus in 71 BC, it was perceived as a less glorious victory. At a time when his competitors, Caesar and Pompey, were enjoying triumph after triumph, Crassus wanted to claim his share of military glory. However, his ambitions did not unfold as planned, as the expedition he decided to undertake proved to be a too challenging task. Crassus chose the Parthians as his military adversaries for his adventure, traditional enemies of the Romans in the Middle East. However, in this case, Crassus miscalculated. The Parthians were not as easy an opponent as he had imagined. The Romans, with 7 legions totaling up to 40,000 men, were ambushed by the less numerous Parthian cavalry during their march. In the Battle of Carrhae in 53 BC, the Romans suffered a devastating defeat, in which not only Crassus himself but also his son perished. Only just under 10,000 men managed to escape and return to Roman territory. The fate of the captured soldiers remains uncertain. Many legionaries surrendered in the face of the heavy defeat, and the Parthians captured them. The question of what happened to them afterward remains unanswered. American sinologist Homer H. Dubbs had a theory that the Parthians did not enslave the captured Romans but incorporated them into their service. These units were allegedly sent to the eastern border of the Parthian Empire to defend against attacks by local nomads. However, over time, these units became mercenaries for the nomadic Xiongnu, originally intended to be repelled. In 36 BC, a battle occurred between the Chinese army of the Han Dynasty and the Xiongnu. Records suggest that among the nomads, white soldiers using a shield formation similar to the Roman turtle formation fought. Although the Chinese won the battle, they were impressed by the martial skills of these soldiers and decided to incorporate them into their service as mercenaries, settling them in the province of Gansu and gradually merging with them. Nevertheless, the question remains whether these were truly the lost Roman soldiers from the Battle of Carrhae or different units. Another unexplained disappearance involves the Roman 9th Legion, which was an elite military unit that gained great fame during its existence. It is not entirely clear when it was formed, but the first mentions of it appear around 90 BC in connection with its participation in the so-called Social War. It also took part in Caesar's campaign in Gaul, and during the Cantabrian Wars in present-day Spain under Emperor Augustus, it earned the honorary title Hispana. In 43 AD, it was part of the invading Roman army that attacked and conquered Britain. After occupying most of the island, it likely remained in place, tasked with guarding the northern border of the new province against hostile Celtic tribes. The last known location where the 9th Legion was definitively active is Britain. The last records of its activities date back to 108 AD in connection with the reconstruction of the fortress of Eboracum, modern-day York. into a stone fort. After that, all reports about the legion disappear. The question of where more than 5,000 men went remains unanswered. There are various theories and findings that suggest the possible presence of the 9th Legion after 117 AD. Some scholars argue that there are indirect references from 117 AD, indicating that the Legion was still in Britain. However, these claims are controversial, and there are also discoveries of officer items with insignias at the Novio Magus fortress in what is now the Netherlands, dated between 121 and 130 AD. This has led to speculation that the Legion may have moved from Britain to the Roman Empire's border with Germania. There are also reports of high-ranking officers associated with the 9th Legion in the province of Judea in present-day Israel, where they supposedly participated in suppressing the Jewish revolt from 132 to 136 AD. However, these indirect findings do not conclusively prove the Legion's existence after 117 AD, the alleged disappearance date. The question of why there are no official reports of the 9th Legion after this period remains unclear, as the Romans meticulously recorded information about their wars and military units. According to records, the 9th Legion is not mentioned in any wars after 117 AD. The arrival of the Roman Emperor Hadrian in Britain in 122 AD and his proposal to build Hadrian's Wall in the north of the island are considered a reaction to some unfavorable events. Many historians speculate that this reaction could have been triggered by a major uprising of British tribes in 119 AD. The epicenter of this rebellion was in the central and eastern parts of the island, areas considered to be the territory of the 9th Legion. In 120 AD, the VI Legion was additionally transferred to Britain, indicating that the Romans faced significant challenges in suppressing the rebellion. This situation raises the question of whether the 9th Legion was decisively defeated during the uprising, making it impossible to rebuild and ultimately leading to its disbandment. Unfortunately, precise information about the fate of the 9th Legion after this time is lacking, and Roman sources do not provide a direct answer to this question. Various theories and speculations exist regarding the fate of the 9th Legion, but a definitive answer is not yet known. Hadrian's Wall, built in the north of Britain, may be seen as a preventive measure to strengthen the defense of the Roman province and prevent similar uprisings in the future. Let's move a few years back in time, where from the mid-6th century BCE, a new state entity began to emerge in the Middle East, the Persian Empire. Its power ambitions soon influenced all neighboring ancient states. Persians gradually subjugated the Median and Lydian empires, conquered the mighty Babylon, and brought Greek cities on the coast of Asia Minor under their control. In 525 BCE, Egypt, the last powerful empire that could rival the Persians, came into focus. Persian king Cambyses II assembled a massive army and defeated Pharaoh Psammetichus III's forces in the Battle of Pelusium. Egypt subsequently surrendered and became part of the Persian Empire. However, isolated resistance centers persisted in Egypt, particularly in the oasis of Siwa on the western border, home to the influential Oracle of Amun. A new Egyptian army began to form here, prompting a response from the Persians. King Cambyses decided to send an army of about 50,000 men to Siwa. The Persian forces gathered in the Charga oasis, secured their supplies, and ventured into the desert. However, they never reached Siwa. They disappeared somewhere along the way, and not a single man returned. The Greek historian Herodotus claimed that the Persians were hit by a massive sandstorm. However, the question remains whether it is possible for a sandstorm to wipe out 50,000 men. Contemporary experts consider this claim highly improbable, leaning more towards Persian propaganda used to explain and justify the loss of such a massive army. The true reason for the army's loss remains unclear, and historians have been trying to find answers to this question for many years. In the 1990s, two Italian archaeologists, Angelo and Alfred Castiglione, put forward a bold claim regarding the search for the lost Persian army. The Castiglione brothers argued that previous searches were focused on the wrong location. According to their theory, the Persian army took a completely different route than expected. Instead of traditional trade routes, where they would have to linger by conquering smaller oases, they embarked on a long desert journey. The goal was to surprise the defenders of Siwa and attack them from an unexpected direction, the south. Nevertheless, according to this theory, the Persians could have eventually fallen into a trap. The Egyptians might have discerned the Persian intent and set a trap for them in the desert. This would mean that the Persian army was easily defeated in battle. The Castiglione brothers claim to have evidence for their theory, specifically human remains and numerous artifacts of Persian origin found approximately 100 kilometers south of the Siwa oasis. However, this claim has faced skeptical reactions from many historians who do not believe in the authenticity of the Castiglione evidence, especially considering that the Castiglione brothers have been accused of several false discoveries in the past. So the question remains, has the lost Persian army finally been found, or is this an elaborate hoax? Operation Dardanelles during World War I represented a bold plan by British military forces to launch an attack against the Ottoman Empire with the aim of gaining control over the Sea of Marmara and the key straits of the Bosporus and Dardanelles. The main part of this operation involved a landing on the Turkish Gallipoli Peninsula. However, despite the planned strategy, the operation encountered difficulties and the defenses of Turkish fortifications. During the Gallipoli campaign in August 1915, a mysterious event occurred involving the 4th Norfolk Regiment. During an attack on enemy positions in a valley between two hills, where a peculiar mist had formed, 267 men of the regiment, including their commanding officer H. Beauchamp, vanished without a trace. After the mist dispersed, the regiment could not be found anywhere, even though they had not reached the enemy lines. Their bodies were not discovered on the battlefield. Eyewitnesses described the regiment entering the valley where a mysterious mist appeared, but after the mist cleared, the soldiers were missing. The exact location and manner of their disappearance remain unclear. This unexplained event remains part of the mysteries of World War I, although there are various theories and speculations about the fate of the 4th Norfolk Regiment. The fate of the 4th Norfolk Regiment during the Gallipoli campaign remains a mystery, and historians have various theories regarding the soldiers' fate. Some theorists suggest the possibility that the soldiers may have entered into a peculiar mist connected to space-time rifts, finding themselves in a different place and time. This theory presupposes that the soldiers might have traversed some form of a time portal. However, this speculative theory lacks solid evidence and is not scientifically substantiated. Other historians believe that the soldiers may have fallen into a Turkish trap, either all being killed or captured and subsequently executed. Despite the British efforts to investigate after the war, no records of the fate of the 4th Norfolk Regiment were found in Turkish documents. The entire matter remains one of the mysteries of World War I, and the definitive answer to the question of what truly happened to this regiment remains unclear. History sometimes has a tendency to conceal its mysteries, and the fate of the 4th Norfolk Regiment stands as one of those unresolved and debated cases. Another example is the Nanjing Massacre, an incident from 1937 that remains a dark chapter when the Japanese army brutally massacred hundreds of thousands of Chinese soldiers and civilians in Nanjing. This tragic event is still considered one of the most horrifying war crimes in history. It was preceded by the invasion of China by the Japanese army in July 1937, deploying up to 300,000 troops with the goal of pushing the Chinese army into the interior and occupying the strategic cities of Tianjin, Beijing, and Nanjing. After capturing the first two cities, the Chinese prepared to defend the last stronghold in Nanjing. Approximately 150,000 men entrenched themselves in the fields around the city, ready for the Japanese attack. Despite the numerical superiority of the Japanese, they managed to defeat the Chinese defense and drive the soldiers into retreat. A mysterious event, which remains unexplained to this day, also contributed to their success. On the eve of the Japanese attack, Chinese Colonel Li Fuxian set out to check on his men guarding a strategically important bridge leading to Nanjing near the Yangtze River. The soldiers were at their posts and determined to face the enemy. The colonel returned to the city for a war council to prepare his men for the expected attack. However, early in the morning, he was awakened by his deputy with a terrified expression on his face, who informed him that the unit was not at their positions and no one knew where they were. An immediate alarm was sounded and reserves were called into action. Colonel Li Fuxian presumed that the Japanese had somehow surprised his soldiers and occupied their sector. When the reinforcements arrived at the scene, there was calm, and no signs of a confrontation were apparent. Nevertheless, the trenches were completely empty, and there was no trace of his men. The question of what happened to them remains unanswered. The most peculiar aspect of the whole event was the mysterious disappearance. All the soldiers' personal belongings, including their weapons, were left in the trenches, and food was still cooking on smoldering fires. The colonel immediately ruled out an unexpected Japanese attack because the weapons left in the trenches remained untouched. Moreover, no signs of violent conflict were found in the vicinity. Although the disappearance of 3,000 men evidently did not go unnoticed, the event remains unexplained to this day. No one has seen the soldiers since. Historians believe that the entire unit likely deserted under the cover of darkness. However, questions persist. How could 3,000 men vanish unnoticed? The city of Nanjing was behind them, and ahead was territory occupied by the Japanese. Could they have been abducted by extraterrestrials? Or did they get lost in another dimension, as some paranormal enthusiasts suggest? These questions remain unanswered, creating a strange and unresolved chapter in the history of this tragic event. That's all from us for today. If you're interested in videos filled with mysterious mysteries, dark stories, legends, or monsters, and you crave more, subscribe to our channel so you won't miss any new videos.